Hey everyone, and welcome. Instructions are literally everywhere. They guide our every move, from making coffee in the morning to navigating traffic signs on our commute. But have you ever really stopped to think about the hidden language they're using to tell us what to do? Well, today we're pulling back that curtain on this super powerful and often invisible form of communication. So, let's start off with a little puzzle. What on earth do a recipe for chocolate cake, a big red stop sign, and a glossy airline ad have in common? I mean, on the surface, they seem completely unrelated, right? Well, the answer is surprisingly simple. They are all trying to direct your future behavior. Every single one of them is an instruction. And in this explainer, we're going to deconstruct the hidden mechanics that make them so incredibly effective. Now, to really get a handle on instructions, we first need to zoom out a bit and understand the bigger concept they belong to, the idea of a text. It's a word we throw around all the time, but for linguists, it has a very specific and pretty cool meaning. The word text itself actually gives us a huge clue. It comes from the Latin word textus, which means something woven. And that is just a perfect metaphor, isn't it? A text isn't just a random pile of sentences. It's more like a carefully woven fabric, where every single thread connects to create one cohesive whole, one solid piece of meaning. And this image of building blocks really illustrates why we need more than just old-school grammar. See, standard grammar is great at looking at the individual bricks, the sentences. But to understand the whole building, to see how all those blocks create this skyscraper of meaning, we need something called text grammar. So, if all texts are these structured creations, how do we tell them apart? Well, a linguist named Egon Werlich came up with a super handy field guide, sorting basically all texts into 5 dominant types based on what their main goal is. Think of it like a quick cheat sheet for language. First up, you've got description, which is all about painting a picture with words. Then there's narration, which, you guessed it, tells a story over time. Third is exposition. That's for explaining complex ideas. Fourth, we have argumentation, which is all about persuading you. And finally, the big one for us today is instruction. Now, each of these text types has its own job, but instruction is totally unique. It is the only one whose main goal is to reach out from the page or the screen and directly plan what you, the person receiving the message, are going to do next. Okay, so we've arrived at our main event, the instructive text. This is where language really gets to work in the real world, causing things to actually happen. Its entire reason for existing is to spark action. And get this, every single instruction, no matter how complex, I'm talking from a 300-page IKEA manual to a massive legal code, it all starts with what linguists call a thematic text base, which is just a fancy way of saying a simple core command. I mean, think about a stop sign. It's one word, stop. It's a complete, perfect, unmissable instruction. This quote from our source material just captures the whole thing perfectly. It's not about the past or even what's happening right now. Instructions are all about what will be. They're designed to organize the future one command at a time. Okay, this brings us to the core insight of this whole thing. Once you start looking for it, you realize that every single instruction out there falls into one of 2 big categories. And the difference between them? It all comes down to one simple question. Where is the authority coming from? So on one side, you have subjective instructions. These are based on the authority of the person or group sending the message. It's about their status, their opinion, or their experience. And on the other side, you've got objective instructions. These are totally impersonal. Their authority comes from shared rules, public laws, or just plain old practical reality. So let's dig into this subjective type first. With these instructions, it really matters who is doing the telling. The speaker's personality, what they want, their goals, it's all woven right into the command. Here is a classic example. This sounds helpful, right? Maybe even encouraging. But make no mistake, it is an instruction. It's a super persuasive style that hides the command, follow these guidelines, inside a promise of some amazing benefit. You see this in advertising all the time. And this ad is a perfect case study. An ad like this is a masterclass in subjective instruction. It isn't just showing you a pretty picture. It's using a persuasive, personal, friendly tone to guide your future behavior, and, more specifically, to get you to book a flight with them. All right, let's hop over to the other side of the map. Objective instructions, they feel totally different. They strip away all that personal stuff. The authority doesn't come from a me or a we, it comes from the system itself.
We can actually break these down into 4 main types, and each one kind of escalates in formality. So at the base, you have directions, like a recipe or an instruction manual. Then you have rules, like for a board game or a company's code of conduct. Up another level, you get regulations, which are official rules from some authority. And right at the top, you have statutes, which are actual laws.
And this comparison just shows the incredible range of objective instructions. On one end, you've got something purely practical and helpful, like a map giving you directions. Its authority is based on, physical reality. But on the other end, you have the full force of a legal system, a statute whose authority is granted by a government.
So we've looked at text types, we've broken down instructions into subjective and objective. But so what? Why is any of this important? How does knowing this stuff change the way we actually see the world? Well, let me ask you this. Why is it so important to be able to tell the difference between an ad making a polite suggestion and a law making a binding demand? The answer has everything to do with understanding power and authority. When you can identify the type of instruction, you can pinpoint exactly where its authority is coming from. You can see the why behind the command. Is it driven by someone's personal desire, like an ad trying to make a sale, or is it based on public law, like a traffic light trying to keep everyone safe? That's a pretty critical distinction to be able to make. And that, right there, is the big takeaway. Every text wants something. And by understanding this hidden language, you really gain a new lens to see the world through. You can look at any message, from a social media post to a legal contract, and see the invisible machinery working behind the scenes to shape your actions. You now have the tools to read what the world is really asking of you.